Y'all, today we need to talk about some big Wiz on console news. Unless you've been living under a rock, you probably already know this. Wiz is releasing to PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch very soon. Almost everyone I know that plays Wiz is hype about this. So a few weeks ago, we got our first update on this development, basically. And we got a preview into what questing and interacting with NPCs, going through dialogue would look like. But recently, just a couple of days ago on livestream, we got another preview of what Wiz on console is gonna look like. But this time it's combat and housing, which I would argue are like the meat and potatoes. So what you see on your screen is what a console player on Wizard101 will see when they enter combat. And honestly, I was a little bit worried about this because I feel like, you know, discarding, drawing, all of that stuff, it seems very seamless on, you know, mouse and keyboard. But I have a Switch controller here. This is the only controller that I have any knowledge of. But basically, you would use the right trigger to pick one card or another, and then you have your four main buttons to do things like select, discard, draw, and also pass. Now, based on the preview of this, it actually looks like it works. And that's something that, one, it just needs to work because otherwise we will probably have a more and more delayed release for this thing. But one thing I was kind of skeptical about, especially because my perspective of combat like comes a lot from PvP. Sometimes there are scenarios where you have to discard a lot and draw a lot. I actually feel like the way they did this is actually not terrible at all. So the idea really, if you're in a position where you have to draw and discard a lot, you would have to do a lot of the discarding first and just spam X. I think that's literally all you would have to do. It's probably almost as fast as mouse and keyboard, if not faster, depending on your level of comfort. And you guys are probably aware, especially if you do PvP, but if you do any sort of combat whatsoever, on mouse and keyboard, there's a way to basically mouse over either the wizard or the enemy to know what effects are, you know, on either of them. The practical use of that really is sometimes, like, you know, you might be buff stacking and you lose track of, like, you know, did I do a balance blade or did I do a sharpened balance blade? Right before they did that quality of life change into, like, you know, the mouse and keyboard version of Wiz, you wouldn't actually know unless a blade looked literally different whether it was actually going to be different or not. Right, so they have a way where you can mouse over your own wizard or someone to, like, keep track of it. On console, it's actually going to have a whole ass interface altogether. So they showed this on screen. You could actually basically pull up this overlay and you could switch between either player or mob to know what effects and how many effects, how different they are, all of that. Right, you'll have the info that you need in a way that honestly doesn't even actually exist on mouse and keyboard yet. Now, they did clarify that while this is different, it's not the final version of this. So the fact that they've created something completely new for console and what we've seen, it looks pretty good, but it's not even the final version. I'm starting to have really high hopes about combat on console. Since the UI isn't finalized yet, I would love if they could fix something that I think is always kind of held back the, I guess, a similar counterpart to this feature on Wiz on PC. And this is something that happens as you, like, you know, interact with more of the slightly more complicated parts of the game. But whenever you're clearing, gambiting, all of those things, sometimes the order of like a trap or a blade actually matters a lot, right? Like sometimes I want to single swap a scorpion. With the current UI, it's not just the bottommost shield on the UI that I'm guaranteed to swap if there have been like repeat shields, for example. I don't know if that made sense, but I just feel like, let's say that you want to like remove a trap or you want to figure out what order something is in. I hope this UI, if they're gonna put resources into this, I hope this UI can also differentiate between that. I would argue they should probably add that to Wiz on PC as well, if you ask me. Now, I think another roadblock in terms of like, you know, rolling out Wiz on console was housing, and that was also a part of, I guess, whatever you want to call this, the demonstration they did on live stream. So this is basically what it looks like when you open up the normal housing menu on consoles. So basically, right, for anything that involves picking an item, placing it down, and stuff like that, like the very basic stuff, it's super easy. It's literally just the four main buttons on any controller, X, A, Y, B, and you basically, I'm just gonna assume, use your right trigger just like you would for normal movement and even, like, you know, scrolling through cards in combat, the same trigger basically to move that item around. Now, what's crazy is that they also added advanced movement, which I didn't even think they could do this in console this quick. I don't know what really goes into the development of this stuff, but basically, right, for any sort of movement, especially when it comes to housing, decorating, that's a little bit like, you know, more like granular in terms of like how you want to move. It's not like, you know, a 90-degree rotation. Maybe it's like a little bit of a difference in elevation or direction, right? Stuff like that. They've also rolled out the user interface for this on console. Again, it's super similar. It's just the same few buttons, but you just have to just open up a new menu in order to interact with it. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't even know how castle magic really works, but it also looks like the buttons that you haven't interacted with, I guess, up to this point, right? Those like right triggers, left triggers, all of that. Basically, you could use those, I guess, for castle magic. That's basically what they binded these keys to. So basically, you can go out of your way to decorate something. You could go out of your way to move it the way you want to, and you could add castle magic to bring it to life. And to give y'all an idea of how far they've actually like gone with this since the last time that they even gave us a teaser, it looks like interactive items and stuff, they're all good to go on console. Basically, housing as a thing on itself, it looks like they've definitely rolled out the entire interface for this. It looks pretty seamless. The other big tidbit that they actually like, I guess this was something that most people were speculating on but didn't know for sure, but it does look like they're gonna be adding membership to Wizard101 even though it's gonna be on console. Now, I'm still skeptical that it's gonna be exactly the way that it is on mouse and keyboard and PC and all of that. And why do I say this? I'm pretty sure different consoles have different ways for you to buy and purchase games, right? Sometimes you have like game passes that you actually like pay the console, and then games on that console take a cut. And we still don't know whether membership is specifically going to be tied to questing through the game as well, if they're trying to do something different for their console release. So I would say, even though they have said that they are going to do membership, I'm going to wait until I just know more details. But I actually wish that they would move away from membership as they do more long-term things and bigger launches. I'm going to stick to this opinion. I think one of the big things holding back Wiz is the fact that you need membership simply to quest through the game. I don't mind a membership. I actually would still purchase a membership, even if it didn't involve unlocking areas. So I'm going to continue to hope very, very optimistically that they are going to be, you know, at least experimenting with this idea of using a membership to like block off areas. I feel like that's just a little too extreme. And if they're trying to have a successful console release and they want membership tied to it, that's fine. I'm gonna still assume that they're open to experimenting. I think if they really just want the most successful release, I would hope that they, you know, look at what maybe held back Wizard101 on PC and try to, like, you know, rectify that, right? So that's kind of what I'm hoping. But y'all, with this teaser, now we have a very, very good idea of how movement, questing, combat, and probably the most complex side activity, which is housing. We know how all of those are gonna work, and it looks like they're not just early in the development of this, they're making a lot of progress. What does that mean for the actual launch of console? I can only assume that it's gonna happen soon. I don't know the timeline. I would not be able to tell you all this. I just don't have extra info on this, but I'm really hoping it happens this year. I'm hoping late this year, maybe. We have no idea, but it looks like they're making a lot of headway. This looks to be a big priority for them. And at the end of the day, I think all of it is a sign that the player base is gonna grow and that the game is doing well enough to even consider the possibility of really like quickly developing a launch like this. I think all of it's really, really cool. But y'all, let me know what you guys think of our, I guess, second look at what Wiz on console is gonna look like, this time with combat and housing. How do you guys feel about combat? And what do you guys think they could add in terms of extra features to make combat feel as second nature as it does, as I guess Wiz on PC does? I look forward to reading all of y'all's thoughts on this, especially people that literally, you know, are waiting to play with the controller on PC. I'm sure they're the most excited. As always, drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome, y'all. See y'all soon. And yeah.